obesity, diabetes, and lifestyle diseases. These are the words we've been trained to link to Coca-Cola. And for decades, the narrative has been simple. Coke is the villain of public health, an evil corporation that is fueling a global crisis. But while the world has focused what's inside the bottle, something much bigger is happening in the shadows of their supply chain. Today we aren't debating the science of sugar addiction. We are looking at why this evil corporation might actually be doing more to protect the future of our environment and human rights than your own government. And by the end of this video, you will be shocked to know how every time you purchase a bottle of Coke, you might be helping protect a poor woman from losing her child. Watch till the end because you will be astonished to know that Coke isn't that bad as you might think. And if you're new here, I'm Arjun Phillips and I've spent more than a decade working in global sustainability and development issues. And before we dive into answering this question, we need to see how the company is transforming its approach towards its topmost ingredient, sugar. As one of the most popular beverages around the world, Coke has a consumption of 1.9 billion times every single day. And it's estimated that it might be using 9 million kilograms of sugar. Again, every single day. Now, I've got to tell you that these are just an approximation because the company doesn't release any public figures as to the exact usage of sugar in its products. But to achieve these astronomical quantities of sugar for its products, Coke sources it from sugar-rich regions around the world, especially from Brazil, Mexico, and India. And here's where a problem becomes more defined. You see, in Brazil and Mexico, the sourcing is pretty straightforward, right from mills and cooperatives, and commit to provide a specific quota of sugar to Coke. However, in India, the story is different. In March 2024, the New York Times carried out an investigation on Coke and found that it was sourcing sugar from farms that engaged a system that was a form of bonded labor. If I could put it correctly, modern-day slavery. Now, you might be shocked that how does bonded labor continue to exist and how is it even legal? Well, this is the part where the laws are exploited. You see, sugarcane harvesting is usually undertaken by casual and informal workers, which means that these workers have no skills, no documentation or paperwork, and no employment and social security. They work odd jobs and are seasonally employed for different kinds of work. In the sugarcane belt of Western India, there's a particular system called Koyta, which is a sickle used for cutting the canes. And this is how the system works. Under the Koyta system, only the couples are hired to cut the canes because two hands provide more output. They're paid a certain advance amount, usually before the cutting season begins, ranging anywhere from $800 to $1,800. Now, since the money has been paid upfront, the couple are forced to remain on the field, weathering it out in the hot, humid climate and even the rainy season, living in the most inhumane conditions. And many of them have to battle venomous snakes because they live in makeshift tents. When these workers get bit or even sick, they can't even take a day's off because they are levied with heavy fines and penalty for missing out a day's work. But this is the part where it gets really shocking and gut-wrenching. The New York Times uncovered that most of the women workers were systematically denied their basic human right, the right to procreate. Women workers were forced to undergo hysterectomies, which is the removal of uteruses to deter pregnancies. In the beet districts of Maharashtra, where these workers primarily migrate from, many of them belong to the age group of 20 to 25. Now you will ask, how were they convinced to undergo these surgeries? Well, here is where the psychological trap is effectively laid out. The contractors under whom these workers work for convince them that the surgeries will benefit women workers from not being absent and likewise save themselves from penalties and fines. For a family under debt bondage, paying even a single rupee for being absent is a huge burden for them. And fearing the consequences of menstruation and pregnancy, these gullible poor women are led towards surgeries. And it doesn't end here. Many of these workers usually marry their girls in child marriage so as to escape the burden of rearing a girl child. Now, just to be fair, sugarcane farming in India is very opaque, and the actors responsible for cutting the canes and supplying it to the mills are usually middlemen or third-party contractors. And this is to ease the time and costs because farmers only concentrate on growing and cultivating the sugarcane, as harvesting consumes time and labor. And because the farmers depend on the mills for the right price at the right time, third-party contractors are hired to cut the canes using their own workforce, which are these informal workers. Not employed by farmers, not even the mills, and not even companies like Coke. Now, when this article came out, it didn't create that much noise, especially with Coke being named in it. But however, as a company, Coke was shocked by what was happening on the ground and immediately jumped into correcting these supply chain issues. Instead of putting a policy or a statement on its website, like they do have here, Coke realized this. They didn't speak. They launched a campaign, a strategic supply chain program designed to surgically remove the Koyta system from their businesses. And the first move was a zero tolerance ultimatum. Any supplier still using predatory bonded labor was immediately cut off. But they went deeper than just firing people. They started fixing the infrastructure of survival. They installed water ATMs because for years these workers were forced to drink out of dirty irrigation canals, leading to various infections that the contractors justified for undergoing hysterectomies. They deployed mobile shade tents, ensuring that a pregnant worker isn't a liability for collapsing under a 45-degree sun, but a human being with the right to rest. But here's the mechanical shift. The contractor bypass. Now, Coke integrated a digital payments system to directly pay workers into their own bank accounts. By removing the middlemen from the cash flow, they effectively ended the debt trap. The worker is no longer a shadow, relying on the contractor's mercy for a few crumpled notes. They are a documented part of the global financial system. To back this up, they brought in the tech. They partnered with specialized firms to create a digital grievance line. In the old days, if a contractor turned violent or withheld food, there was no one to call. Today, that worker has a direct encrypted line to the mill and Coca-Cola headquarters. However, the most transformative and frankly the most emotional part of the story is the installation of mobile crèches on the fields and in the mills. In the very districts where hysterectomies were the logical choice to stay employed, Coke has built child-safe zones. These are mobile classrooms and nurseries that follow the harvest. Now, instead of a mother fearing her biology or her child is a burden to her survival, she has a place where the newborn is safe, shaded, and fed. And these children aren't tagging along in the heat anymore. They have access to education and basic healthcare facilities while their parents work. Coke, by protecting the child, is finally allowing the mother to keep her body intact. Now, these are not the only things Coca-Cola is doing. They're doing something huge on the environment also, especially with water. Now, I won't be able to comprehensively cover these issues in this video, so I would like you to comment whether you would like to see another video on Coke's environmental work. Look, let's be real. At the end of the day, Coke is still a sugary beverage and it is really addictive. Now, I am not a health expert, but I am a believer in common sense. If you're enjoying it in moderation and coupling it with regular workouts, it's not going to be the villain of your personal story. But as a sustainability investigator, my job is to look past the sugar and into the systems. And what I found is that while the product may be a treat for you, the company's actions are a lifeline for thousands. When a global giant chooses to dismantle bonded labor, build schools, and return more water to the earth than it takes, they're proving they're definitely not evil. They are becoming a regulator in a world where governments often fail. So next time you see that red label, remember, you're not just buying a drink. You might be supporting a system that puts people and planet before the shadows of the past. If you like this video, then do hit a like on it and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see more such investigations, then do look at this video I made on mica in beauty products.